I've been a goth since a teenager, even before it had a name, and love the look, love the clothes, love the culture. But I was always kind of bothered with how the church accepts people that have a different outer appearance. Hello, my name is Donna Sheehy, also known as Goth Mom Donna of the Grave Robbers Ministry. The Grave Robbers Ministry is a goth ministry of born-again Christians that love Jesus, that want to share their faith with other goths around the world. And I've been a Christian for a very long time and a Christian goth for a very long time too. I had Gothicon because I wanted to bring the goth community together, especially a lot of the leadership of the elder goth community. And by elder goth, I mean goths that are older, who have been in ministry a long time, like Lady Michaela from ChristianGoth.com and David Delman from Gothic Christianity, and Pastor Dave Hart from Sanctuary Ministry, and myself and Blood Dan from Sandusky. So having the goth family under one roof for a weekend is pretty inspiring. But the main goal was to bring us all together so we can refresh each other, and almost like a renewal, you know, and it really set the community on fire.
You're my children. And I need you, my children.
I've got it. It's going once and this is the second time around.
Okay.
I don't think no.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There you go. Beautiful.
Good afternoon. I'm Goth Mom Donna. I greatly appreciate you coming to Gothicon. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Gothic is really a state of mind.
I think everybody has sort of their own take on what goth is, what it means. I think actually what it means to them is kind of personal, to be honest.
Sort of appreciation for the darker or dramatic aesthetics. Gothic people generally choose not to reject it, but instead to embrace it and see the beauty in it.
I've always liked kind of like the darker things and more the macabre, and the more I discovered about the goth scene, the more just I felt like I identified with them, and just with the whole romanticized, versions in the architecture, the art, the literature, and discovering the music, and it was just like spoke to me, and I just felt like I really belonged there, and the people I felt I could really just connect with. And there was just like a really neat connection there, and I really like that.
The overall acceptance of different shapes, sizes, colors, and shades of people, they accepted and valued you as a person regardless. And as a Christian, that really meant something because that's what Jesus' message was all about. First loving God and then loving your neighbor. And it's really the first time I really experienced that.
Well, there's the clothing, there's of course there's the music, although, but there's also like a sense of with like everyday culture is kind of like always judging and saying socially, okay, you got to be a certain way, but when you go into that, it's more like we accept you the way you are, we love you the way you are, and it doesn't matter what you wear, it doesn't matter like how you are.
We find the beauty in things that other people don't. Like, the beauty of pain and life and everything together. And, especially as Christian goths, that I think that works even better that way. We realize, all the things that, God put everything together in such a way that even pain and everything can work out to be a beautiful thing. And, He can use, He can use pain to
bring us closer?
Yeah, bring us closer to Him. And just life and death, we weren't supposed to die in the beginning. But God took that and He made it into a beautiful thing, like He always does. He can take tragedy and make it into something positive.
I really don't even know how to put it into words per se. It's way more than a fashion statement. It's a lifestyle. I think it's for people who just have very creative, artistic desires to, and they wear it on the outside. And they have unique ideas. A lot of people who, like I said, dress this way are into some dark things, but thank God He brought me out.
I was never really that outgoing growing up. I have Asperger's syndrome, and I was never really able to relate socially that well. And, I grew up in a very, strict Christian family. So I went to church and was heavily involved in the youth group, but I always felt sort of alienated. I've never been directly intimidated, but I've heard obviously I'm not going to name any names, but I've had a youth minister refer to Gothic people as Satanists or queers or things like that, and I found that really, really disheartening, and I wasn't even really into Gothic culture at the time that I heard that, but it just kind of broke my heart that someone would say something about another person that they really haven't even met and never really got to know, and it just kind of added to my sense of alienation, which I thankfully that went away, but it was very hard for quite a long period of time.
I've unfortunately experienced a lot of deaths in my family. Not that death is the only thing associated with the culture, but it's just, I don't know, I guess being a Christian too, it kind of gave me a better understanding of what God goes through sometimes. I guess it gives me a way to maybe relate to some of the younger ones coming up, because that's something else I've been kind of forced into. I'm in my 30s, so it's like kind of surreal in and of itself, but I get these younger girls and young women coming to me for advice, and I'm like, oh, you sure you want advice from me? Because I really don't know what I'm talking about half the time, but I'm like, all I can do is share my experience with you. So it's kind of, and those young girls and people don't always have somebody to go to, that understands, like if they're a cutter or, heaven forbid that they watch a scary movie and liked it, it's like, oh, well, you're not Christian enough, or something like that, or they still believe in something, and they've just either been hurt or jaded or something so badly that they just don't want to be associated with mainstream religion of any kind, because they're still searching inside. What I'm finding with God is He's opening doors with me. When I used to smoke, about 4 years ago I quit, but when I used to smoke, I was in my house watching a movie one night, and it was, I had the lights kind of dim for the movie, and I took a drag off my cigarette. And if you ever seen a cigarette when it kind of gets that glow when the suction's going through, God kind of revealed something to me. He's like, do you see that light? How the room kind of lit up a little bit when you did that? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, that's what you guys are to me. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you are my dark ones. You go into the darkness. You're not afraid. Sorry. He said, some people are in so deeply that it's like somebody comes charging in with the light, they're blinded and they get afraid. But if you have that glow of a cigarette or a candle, it's softer light, but it's still light. You can pull them out a little further so that somebody can go in and get them.
I think everybody has sort of their own take on what goth is, what it means. I think actually what it means to them is kind of personal, to be honest. To me, goth means, it's actually almost kind of like a nice little, neat little catchphrase for what I like, my interests, my personality, and I think, a lot of goths, you can have a stereotype, we are a certain way, we have a certain type of interest every one of us can agree on, but, I think in a lot of ways we diverge from that. But goth, I think, it's all encompassing. The way that I've seen God move is just in a way of love. I mean, I think especially the people in this culture, like I said, they've been abused by the mainstream church and, rejected, and they come to this culture and it's a culture of acceptance. I think more so than any other culture, we accept one another for our weirdness, our geekiness, for this or that. And I think people really see that in like, especially the Christian goth culture, you're accepted, you're loved, and they see the love of Christ through that, so I think that's one of the big draws.
wave the Savior of your life?
For thee, my Lord, for thee. Now are they issued up forth from thy hands, our feet to carry out thy commands. And we will flow ever forth to thee, teeming with souls shall it ever be. In nomine Patrick, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti.
Just over the years, like I've gotten closer to God. Just before it was, I really was identifying myself with this scene in general, whereas I should have been finding my identity in Christ. And that's where the danger is, I think, for Christian goths, is getting caught up in the scene, and there's a lot of vanity that can come with it, because it's, oh, how do I look, and what do people think of me, how do they perceive me, and whereas it shouldn't be about that. It should be, does Christ show through me, and am I being, Christ-like to people? And that's where I feel that God has changed me, because I used to be very much so, concerned with what people thought of me and trying to be as, try to look cool, and now, I just don't really care anymore, and it's like I find my identity in Christ. And so that's how I feel like God has moved in me personally.
A year ago, I started seminary, and I'm getting my master's in divinity, and I'm going to be a pastor, and my specialization is going to be subculture ministry, with more specifically the goth subculture. And since God has been taking me through the journey of walking through seminary, I've realized that the way that we present God in our faith in the Christian church is very one-dimensional. It's a flat sheet of paper, and everybody comes to it and hits it at the same point. But God is not a flat sheet of paper. He's spherical. And that there's only one way to get to God. Jesus is the way and the truth and the life, and no one shall come to the Father except through him. But the way that we experience God and the way that he grows us is so spherical and so much bigger than we can even understand or imagine, that I think that we oftentimes put him in a box and try to make him into what everybody else has told us. And if we focus on the fundamentals of what Christ came to do, and that he is the way and the truth and the life, then our theology and the way that we work out our faith with fear and trembling will grow in ways that we can't even imagine.
I have, the people that I've been introduced to since I have just a short time that I've been around them have been amazing prayer warriors. I feel like I am learning how to pray, like how to rely on God more. They're really strong Christians that I look up to.
I've seen that he's delivered a lot of people out of Satanism, witchcraft, pulled people from the edge of suicide, cutters being healed, not knowing where to turn or what to do, with their lives, having so much hatred and anger built up inside of them for whatever they've gone through in their life. He has shown them love and accepted them for who they are, not for what they look like or who other people would judge them to be. God has shown himself as their Father, and that he looks at their heart. He doesn't look at the outside appearance anyway, But I think that he's doing a mighty work. I believe that nothing's new with God. He's eternal, but it's new to us. It's a new thing for us. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to see what he's going to continue to do. I think that it's going to be a revival, and I think that Gothic people will come to a place where they can minister to people who would not have even ever listened to a Goth before. I think God's going to put them in places and in leadership positions that they themselves probably never dreamed they could have been in. That's what I think he's doing.
I'm a pastor of a small church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm the lead singer of a band called Grave Robber. We wear costumes and makeup. If you saw the band, you wouldn't recognize me, this way. But as a pastor, I've been able to see in my little underground counterculture church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's called The Gathering, and we meet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's set up for people who are goths, punks, metalheads, artists, people that aren't going to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning to go to church. We wake up at the crack of noon and have church at 2 o'clock. Well, we have a family that started attending our church, and they were all hooked on drugs, and they were all hooked on, I believe it was meth, and just through the Holy Spirit and through the power of God, the entire family got saved. The entire family is now off drugs, and they're high on my radar as people that will be in leadership for the church, because it is amazing. High on my radar to be people in leadership because of how bold and how strong they are in their faith. They have a real faith because they saw a real activity of God in moving in their lives. We've seen people's lives through Grave Robber. We've heard countless stories of people who had fallen completely away from their faith, but when they listened to a Grave Robber record, they felt like, wow, there is a place for me in the kingdom. What happens is you get somebody who's that's designed to be somebody in a counterculture, no matter whether it's punk rock, goth, some kind of underground metal thing, and they don't feel like they belong because of their particular church culture or even the culture in their town. They fall away because they don't think they belong. Well, this gives an opportunity for people to be themselves, be who they are, and still seek after Jesus, and it's okay. It's kind of an angry world out there, a world that doesn't accept Christ followers and doesn't accept goths or punks or whatever it may be. So here we have an opportunity to embrace both our faith and our style or our culture or whatever you want to call it. There's a place where we can do that, and that's what's great about Gothicon. It's my first time here, and already I'm just absolutely in love with the whole idea and the whole thing. It's great. And we want to thank Donna too for spearheading the whole thing. So it's been great.
My name is Lady Michaela. I am founder and pastor of a website called ChristianGoth.com. ChristianGoth.com is aimed specifically to Gothic people who are Christian, and because they feel like there's not, at the time, 14 years ago, they thought there was nothing out there for them. They weren't welcomed in church, and I said, I'm going to make a website that is godly for them. And I would start getting letters, and they would say, I thought I was the only one.
Well, I used to produce these types of events, and God orchestrates them. And I'm sure that if you had Donna Sheehy sitting here right now, she would tell you God orchestrates these events. The first year that I did one was, I think, 2004, and people literally came to me and said, we'd be happy to travel across the country to come to this event. And so people traveled everywhere. And I put the event on not really having all the funds necessary to make it happen. The Sheehys were instrumental in making that year happen from a fiscal point of view. And then in the second year, we needed a bigger venue. And I was driving around. We were doing this in October, actually the end of October, beginning of November. So we were driving around, my wife and I were looking for a venue. And we went to these really divey hotels. And they were telling us, well, I'm sorry, we're booked. Everybody's booked. So we're driving back to our house, and we're going by the Sheraton, which is like a premium 4-star hotel. I thought we might as well go in there and have a look. So we went in, and it turned out that they were having a hard time getting a particular room rented. So they were willing to do it for half their regular price. So we got to share it and less than we would have paid for a dive in the second year. So God orchestrates these events. God wants to pull people together, and I've seen miracles happen when it comes to Christian Goth ministry.
Let me introduce myself, and then I'm going to open us in a word of prayer. My name is Zoe Carricker. I have been doing subculture ministry for the past 12 years. In Romans 7:18 through 20, Paul writes, "And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is the sin in me that does it." It wasn't until I started going to seminary and started dealing with a lot of my issues that I realized that the walls that I had built up over these years had locked something inside of them. The protective walls that I had put up had locked in my sin. And that verse speaks so beautifully to that. My self-hatred and self-deprecation is a sin. Flat out is a sin. Because it keeps me from having the relationship with God that I need and that I'm called to have.
I got this tattoo about 3.5 years ago. I got it in December of 2007, but it was a year-long accumulation of getting this tattoo. I came to Christ when I was 17. That is a completely different story. I was saved off of the streets. I had made a vow that I would kill myself by the age of 20. I dropped out of high school. I was deep into the self-mutilation thing. By the time I came to Christ, I had hundreds of scars on my body. I had no hope. And then I came to Christ. It was this radical coming to faith where it was between accepting Christ or committing suicide, so I thought I would try the Jesus thing first. And it was like lightning hit me when I asked for him to enter my life. And it was such a radical encounter. For the first time in my life, I felt the living presence of Christ come. For the first time, the presence, the heartbeat, the breath of Jesus Christ come into my life. I've come to know Christ as the greatest partaker in human suffering. That when I cry, he cries. That when I'm in pain, he is in pain. That's the answer. That we aren't alone.
I think that if you asked a mainstream Christian who has no exposure to goth what they think of goth, they're going to come up with satanic ritual, evil, all kinds of occultic type stereotypes.
I think, mainstream Christians, they get their information from mainstream media, which is, it is very stereotypical in how it portrays goth culture. Obviously, there was Columbine, and every time there's a school shooting, goths always get the crosshairs pointed at them, which I think is quite unfair. But it really takes just education, proper education to learn and to teach people about goth culture, and that it's not evil or satanic, or they don't sacrifice animals or anything silly like that.
Being a Christian, we're in a fallen world, and you're still a goth. It's just you're now saved by grace, and you learn where to draw the line in certain areas.
The Lord made us all unique, and He did not, when He made us Christians, He didn't stamp us with a cookie cutter mold. We are all different, and being goth you can be Christian and goth, because goth is not about religion. It's a lifestyle, it's interest. It's definitely not about religion. So you can be Christian and you can be goth.
Well, the scripture is very clear on what He requires. He says in Hosea, "Who has shown you, O man, what the Lord requires of thee, but to live humbly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with the Lord your God?" And that's it. He didn't say you had to dress a certain way or be a certain way, just to walk humbly with Him. He also said something to the extent of, your sacrifices and offerings I didn't even want. I just want a broken and contrite heart, a broken heart.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people associated with goth, have an affinity with hurt, have a friendship with it even, to a certain degree. Very intimate and feel it. And those are the people that the Lord wants to reach out and touch and love and minister to.
The aspect of Gothicness is not just about embracing darkness, although some of them do like that aspect. I think the issue is that those that choose the darker side have a number of reasons. Some of them just simply like the art and the things, but some of them are actually hiding from real darkness in their lives. They've been abused, they've been ignored. A lot of the ugliness they put on, the tattered clothes, the way they do their makeup and stuff, is deliberately to scare people away. Ironically, I think goths are trying to scare the darkness away, and I think we embrace things that we're kind of afraid of or we're trying to conquer, and to some degree kids are trying to get past the darkness they've been exposed to in their lives, and it's kind of an embrace it so that it won't hurt me anymore. And and Christians can't, as an overall arching, can't say that they haven't been part of that darkness. A lot of these kids were abused in churches and by churches in various forms and formats.
And I know that sometimes Christians are well-meaning, but so often they hurt the feelings of some of the younger kids. And we were at a music festival this year, and one of the prayer team members came up to one of the younger teens and told her that she was going to go to hell because of the way she dressed. And the reason that disturbs me is because you never know what your words are going to do to a person. They could cause a suicide, or one of the teens to start self-abusing, or they could send them off the deep end mentally. And I would just implore that as Christians, we should love everybody equally, no matter how these teens are dressed, and adults too. It's not just limited to the teenagers, but just by a person's words can destroy.
I got one letter from a boy who said, I found ChristianGoth.com tonight, and it saved my life. I was going to kill. I was going to kill myself tonight, and your site saved my life.
I know, like in my own life, I've had like issues with like being suicidal and just like stuff like that. And like when I was younger, and like when I got more into the whole, like, I guess it was just the goth because I was interested by it, but they're still Christian, and that helped me. Like, I got over it. Like, I learned to cope with things, and like I got more into my writing, and I was able to help other people, like help them like find God and get over their issues as well. So.
Because dark is not darkness to God. So there is no darkness with God. There is no ability for us to be darker than God can be light. And so in the long run, the darkness is irrelevant. We all have darkness in our souls. Again, there will be people who will deny that. They think they've arrived. They think that. But we're human, and we're flawed, and we're sinful, and we have darkness. And we have to learn how to deal with it. And that's the way these kids deal with it. At the same time, they're dealing with God as an answer to that in the midst of all that as well. So it's perfectly plausible to be able to embrace a darker look at life and still recognize that there's a big, tough, hard God out there who can handle a big, tough, hard world.